The wind slid across the dunes of Tellura like silk over glass, the sand carrying whispers of old secrets and lost hopes. Far beyond the gilded spires of the governor's citadel, nestled in the outer ring of Sector 9, the air grew thicker with heat and desperation. Tin shack rooftops reflected the harsh double suns, and between the alleys where market stalls leaned tiredly against crumbling stone, a boy moved like a shadow. Kalen kept his head down. Not from fear, not anymore. From habit. The guards only saw you when you gave them a reason. And he couldn't afford to be seen. He slipped past an old cooling unit and ducked into a narrow path where the scent of fried roots and burning wires mingled. The woman at the stall, sleeves rolled, her hair pinned high, barely noticed him until he was already through. Kalen moved like smoke. His destination loomed behind a crooked stack of maintenance drones, the message wall. Officially shut down after the purges, it was now a blank slab of plastcrete. But everyone in the sector knew it still whispered. He traced a finger along the edges until he found it, a hairline crack, no wider than a breath. With a flick of his thumb, the hidden panel shifted and let him in. Inside, the chamber was dark. Not from power loss, but by design. Kalen lit a pocket torch, its orange glow flickering over rusted terminals and exposed wires. This was where people left notes, traded secrets, begged for answers. But Kalen came for something else. He pulled a data tile from his coat. It wasn't just information. It was his mother's voice. Nira. 3 weeks ago, she'd been taken in the middle of the night. No trial. No charge announced. 1 minute she'd been tending to their wall garden, the next she was gone. Disappeared by a system that didn't tolerate voices like hers. Voices that questioned. Voices that remembered. Kalen inserted the tile into the terminal. A low hum. The screen flared, stuttered, then stabilized. Nira's face appeared, calm, strong-jawed, eyes soft but defiant. If you're seeing this, it means I've been taken. And it means what I feared has happened. He'd watched this message a dozen times. And still it sent a cold needle through his ribs. They say I lied. That I incited unrest. But what I told you, Kalen, what I told everyone, I saw it. The transfer files. The stolen water credits. The hidden resources being funneled off-world. Governor Malrix is selling out Tellura and silencing anyone who won't kneel. She paused, her voice trembling. If they come for me, promise me something. Don't fight the way they want you to. Find the truth. Share it. That's the only way we win. The message ended. Kalen didn't blink. He sat there in silence until a creak behind him made him whirl. A boy leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, one eyebrow raised. You know there's easier ways to watch a memorial, right? Tane. He was a year older, thinner, and had the kind of smile that made people lock their storage crates twice. Kalen stood. Did you follow me? Didn't have to. You leave footprints like an old miner. Kalen clenched his jaw. What do you want, Tane? The older boy stepped inside, peering at the terminal. I heard about your mom. Everyone did. My cousin said she used to run tech clinics out of her apartment. Fixed his spinal node for free. Kalen said nothing. Tane turned to him. You trying to get her back? I'm trying to prove she was innocent. Tane gave a short laugh. Everyone who gets taken was innocent. Doesn't stop them from disappearing. She had proof, Kalen said, eyes hard. She saved it somewhere. They wiped her account, erased her logs. But she wasn't stupid. She wouldn't have shouted unless she backed it up. Tane studied him. What do you think she hid? Something called Project Silence. I found the name in a backup key buried under our floor. Tane's smirk faded. He looked uneasy for the first time. Project Silence isn't a rumor you want to chase, Kalen. Why? Because it's not just about corruption. It's about shutting down people like her permanently. The kind of project that doesn't just erase you, it erases everyone who knew you. Kalen stared at him. Then why are you still here? That earned a dry grin. I'm a ghost. I run too fast for them to bother. But you? You're real. They'll want to make an example out of you. You going to help me or not? Tane leaned against the console, then slid a small chip from his pocket. This gets you into the maintenance servers under the Eastern Array. If your mom left anything hidden in the city net, that's where it'll be. But you'll need more than guts to get there. You'll need someone who knows how to dig without triggering alarms. You. Me. But I don't work for free. Kalen narrowed his eyes. I've got nothing. Sure you do. You've got a cause. I've always wanted to burn the system down. Now I've got a reason. Later that night, under a flickering street lamp near the fringe of Sector 9, Kalen watched as Tane pried open a vent cover. He moved fast, precise, like he'd done it 1,000 times. You sure this goes to the Eastern Relay? Kalen asked. Positive. I used to meet my supplier down here. Until he got caught trying to slice into the sector governor's registry. What happened to him? What do you think? They crawled through the shaft in silence, boots clinking lightly on metal. At one point, the floor vibrated, a transport shuttle overhead. The walls were hot from coolant pipes, and the air tasted like copper and oil. Here, Tane said, stopping near a narrow crawlspace. He pressed a button on his wrist rig. A faint hum answered. Then the wall shifted, revealing a cramped chamber with outdated terminals and one live port still blinking green. Kalen slipped inside and pulled his mother's data tile from his coat. He inserted it. Accessing private network node, the terminal chirped. A moment later, a single file appeared. Encrypted. Labeled only, nsong.nira. What is it? Tane asked. Kalen clicked it. A black screen. Then text began to scroll. Project Silence, Internal Protocols. Record of unauthorized resource extraction, confirmed. Asset, Governor Malrix, in collusion with Orion Conglomerate. Status, suppressed dissenting voices through denouncement, imprisonment, and erasure. She found it, Kalen whispered. She didn't just find it, Tane said. She downloaded the kill list. The file listed over 40 names, all arrested or gone. All tied to the resistance. And then came something worse. Target priority, Nira Kess. Influence ranking, high. Threat level, severe. Pre-authorized detainment. Correction protocol, blacklight. Kalen stared. They planned it, in advance. They knew. Tane's jaw tightened. We've got to copy this and get it to someone who can blow it wide open. Who? The officials are owned by Malrix. The media's locked. Then we don't go official. We go viral. He pulled out a transfer spike and connected it to his wrist rig. The data began to flow. Outside, a sudden crack echoed. Then another. Heavy boots. Kalen froze. Did they track us? They must have seen the spike go live. Damn it. Tane yanked the spike out, shoved it into Kalen's hand. Run. I'm not leaving you. Tane shoved him toward the shaft. You're the son of Nira Kess. You don't get to die in a crawlspace. Kalen ducked into the tunnel just as the door behind them exploded inward. He didn't stop running. Not even when the floor shook with stun blasts. Not even when Tane screamed. He ran until the light returned. Until he burst into the surface night, panting, clutching the spike to his chest. His mother had tried to speak. They silenced her. But Kalen would not be quiet. He looked up at the stars above Tellura and whispered, you will hear her now. All of you. And the wind carried her name across the rooftops. Mira. The dark alley behind the cooling tower reeked of fuel vapor and wet ash. Kalen slumped against the wall, breath ragged, every limb aching from the run. Tane's scream echoed in his mind like a ghost refusing to fade. The spike burned in his pocket, and the knowledge it held weighed more than steel. He didn't go home. He couldn't. They'd be watching his place. Instead, he slipped deeper into the undercity, into the cracks and forgotten tunnels where no law reached. He needed a plan. He needed help. And there was one person left who might listen. Zenri lived 3 levels below the transit rail, in a room filled with broken instruments and swirling incense smoke. They said he'd been a symphonist once, before the suppression of cultural voices. Now, he played only in memory. Kalen knocked softly. "I don't take visitors," a voice rasped. "I have Nira's voice," Kalen replied. There was a long pause. Then the door slid open. Zenri was thin as a reed, wrapped in tattered silk, his eyes clouded with blindness, but he turned toward Kalen with uncanny precision. "Come in." The room was dim, warm, filled with old harmonics. Stringed instruments hung like shadows. Kalen sat across from the man and pulled out the spike. "I need to share her truth. But I don't know how to do it." Zenri took the spike between gnarled fingers and hummed as if he could feel the data. "You want to reach the people. Then you need someone who can dance through the signal net like smoke. A slicer? No. A whisperer. And I know one." She was known only as Leora. She worked at the city hospice under a false name, tending to the forgotten. The system didn't care who died quietly. But Leora did. When Kalen found her, she was resetting a neural stent for a crying woman in a rusted medpod. Her touch was steady, kind. "I'm not here for help," Kalen said. "Good," she answered, not looking up. "I don't have any to give. Zenri sent me. I have data. From Mira." That made her pause. Later, in the break room with flickering lights and lukewarm tea, Leora studied the spike on the table. "I heard what happened to her. Brave woman. Brilliant. They silenced brilliance all the time. She was my mother." Her eyes softened. "Then you have more to lose than most." "I need to broadcast her truth," Kalen said. "To everyone. Everywhere." Leora reached into her coat and pulled out an old signal jammer. "Not easy. The system chokes all open frequencies. But, there's a place. Old planetary beacon. Used to transmit to passing ships. Forgotten after the trade embargoes. And it still works. With enough electricity, maybe. Then we go." She hesitated. "It's in Dead Zone 12. No power grid. No patrols either, which is something. But we'll need help to power the dish." Kalen's heart panged. Tane could have done it. Leora looked at him gently. "Then we find someone who loved him enough to want revenge." They found her that night. Kes, Tane's older sister. A rough-edged engineer who'd once wired illegal broadcast rigs for the resistance. "He said he was helping a kid," she growled. "I told him he was too soft." Kalen stood firm. "He gave his life for this. Don't let that be wasted." Kes stared at him, then nodded. "I'll get the power you need. But you carry the voice." 3 nights later, they moved. The old beacon stood like a broken needle in the dust plains outside Sector 12. Fences rusted, solar panels cracked, but the relay dish remained intact. Kes wired a converted generator to the relay station, her hand steady despite the cold. Leora scanned the frequencies, her brow furrowed. "We've got one open band. Tied to a satellite used for old transport comms. If we piggyback the signal and spike the compression. Can it reach the cities?" Leora looked up. It can reach the system. Kalen stepped forward. He held Nira's data core like a relic. Then do it. The terminal buzzed. Lights flickered. Wind howled across the empty fields as the ancient beacon came to life. Kes swore under her breath as sparks flew. Leora fed the file in. You ready? She asked Kalen. He nodded. Play her voice. Let them hear what they buried. It began with static. Then her voice, strong, clear. My name is Nira Kes. I am not a traitor. I am a citizen who saw the truth. And for that, they silenced me. Every screen across the city flickered. In cafes, in apartments, in traffic hubs. On street vendors cracked tablets. On old public nodes where children watched stream tunes. The governor of Tellura has betrayed us. The system is not broken. It is rigged. Our water, our resources, our freedom, sold off to make the rich richer. In the council chambers, high officials stood in confusion. On the streets, people paused. If I am gone, remember this, they fear you. They fear your unity. Truth doesn't die when you jail the voice. It grows louder in silence. Then came the data. Names. Transactions. Video logs. A map of the corruption. Proof undeniable. When the broadcast ended, the city did not roar. It breathed. A long, heavy breath. Then came the spark. In Sector 5, a baker opened his door and shouted, she spoke the truth. In Sector 3, a woman cried and pulled her daughter close. In the governor's palace, alarms blared. Kalen looked at the others. We have to go. Leora pulled the spike out. They'll come now. With everything they have. Kes grabbed a pack. Let them come. We just woke a sleeping fire. As they fled into the night, behind them, the beacon burned blue. The next morning, resistance cells came alive like roots beneath a dying tree. Messages scrawled on walls. Anonymous reports. Students walked out. Workers stopped machines. And in the center of it all, a new phrase sprayed across the city. Nira speaks. But to Kalen, none of it meant anything unless he found her alive. And somewhere, in the black site she was taken to, Nira opened her eyes to a faraway voice carried through static. Her sons. She smiled, despite the cold. She knew he had heard her. And now, the world had too. The streets of Tellura pulsed with tension. The usual gray blur of daily obedience cracked under the weight of whispered rebellion. Murals bloomed overnight on the walls, eyes painted in wild colors, with one name stenciled beneath them in neon ink. Nira. The governor's agents scrubbed them every morning. By nightfall, they were back. Kalen stood on the rooftop of a half-collapsed tenement, watching a sea of people gather in Sector 7. They were ordinary, factory workers, teachers, water haulers, children, and they stood shoulder to shoulder. Silent. Waiting. Some held worn datapads replaying Nira's broadcast. Others lit candles beneath her image. He couldn't speak. The air vibrated with something holy. Something dangerous. Beside him, Leora adjusted the small portable drone camera she carried in a battered satchel. This will reach orbit, she said. Even if they try to jam it. We're not hiding anymore. Kes tapped her boot anxiously. That's the problem. They'll respond with force. And not just against the crowd. Against anyone they think is behind it. Kalen turned to her. Then we need to stay ahead of them. She scoffed. You mean run? No. I mean lead. In the shadow of the city's power spire, a small room buzzed with activity. Outdated comm terminals, makeshift antennae, signal loopers and processors, held together with solder, gum, and defiance. It was called the Nest, and it had become the heartbeat of the resistance. Marin, an old friend of Nira's, now silver-haired and sharper than a shock blade, watched Kalen enter with the weight of expectation. "You lit the fire, boy. Now you have to feed it." "We want to organize," Kalen said. "We?" Leora stepped forward. "We've got cells waking up in every sector. People who want to act. But they're scattered. We need coordination. And we need protection." Marin nodded. "And you want to use the Nest as your brain?" "With your permission," Kalen said. Marin smiled. "Nira used to say you were quiet but dangerous. I see she was right." They divided the city map into zones. Every zone had a whisper line, encrypted relays Leora installed that could carry short-range broadcasts to carefully tuned receivers. Every major street had hidden caches now, medical kits, burner masks, EMP grenades, decoy flash drives. Kes worked day and night with younger techs to build relay drones that looked like birds. The words "Nira speaks" weren't just graffiti anymore. They were passwords. Signals. Hope. But not everyone listened with open hearts. Kalen waited in a dusty courtyard in the remains of Sector 4, where bullet-pocked walls told stories of older fights. He wore a hood, but he didn't hide. Footsteps approached. 2 armored enforcers flanked a tall figure in a black coat with a shock staff across his back. Jesh. Kalen's childhood friend. Once the boy who gave him wildflowers and snuck him treats from the spice markets. Now an enforcer of the governor's order. "You shouldn't have called me," Jesh said. "You came." Jesh's jaw tightened. "Because if I didn't, they'd know I had something to hide." Kalen stepped closer. "I need your help. I wear their uniform. But you still listen to her speeches. I saw your face on the Watcher feed. Silence. I know you still believe." Jesh looked down. "Belief doesn't save lives." Kalen's voice broke. "It saved mine. Tane's. Leora's. You know what they've done. You know what's coming." Jesh's hands trembled slightly. "They're mobilizing. Full lockdown. Martial order. All sectors by week's end. Then help me stop it. You're asking me to betray everyone I've worked with. I'm asking you to remember who you are." A long moment passed. Then Jesh pulled a small chip from under his collar. "Guard routes. Deployment cycles. I'm not giving you more." "That's enough," Kalen said. Their eyes met. Jesh turned and walked away, disappearing into the gloom. The next 3 days were fire and ice. Leora ran the whisper lines. Kes built jammers and decoys. Marin drafted protest routes and printed identity masks. Kalen coordinated. And the city cracked. In Sector 2, workers walked off the loading docks. In Sector 6, students staged a sit-in. In Sector 10, a water convoy was diverted by protesters demanding rations for the underclass. Every hour, new footage streamed through the Nest. Every face. Every chant. Tellura belongs to its people. Nira speaks. We answer. The system retaliated. Drones swept through sectors. Guards opened fire. They raided the hospice. Leora escaped with seconds to spare. But for every voice silenced, 10 more rose. On the 7th day, the governor spoke. A system-wide address. His image, calculated, perfect, digital robes crisp. Citizens of Tellura. You are being misled. A terrorist movement spreads lies and unrest. Their leader, Kalen Kes, son of a known traitor, has incited chaos. Kalen stood in the Nest, watching. He is wanted. Dead or alive. Marin turned to him. Congratulations. You've made the list. Kaelin met her gaze. Then we make them regret writing it. That night, Leora kissed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't soft. It was urgent, trembling, a kiss between cracks in the world. Her hands held his face. His held her waist. When they pulled back, breathless, she whispered, "If this ends tomorrow, I needed to know what it felt like." Kaelin rested his forehead to hers. "Then let's make sure it doesn't." Hours later, an emergency whisper came through. Black Site 3. Prison convoy. Moving a high-value detainee. Night route. Unregistered. Kaelin's heart stopped. "It's her," he said. Leora grabbed her coat. "Then we take her back." The rain came down like broken glass. Sector 11 hadn't seen rain in 3 cycles, and now it poured like the planet itself was trying to cleanse something foul from its surface. Thunder cracked over the skeletal buildings, and the lights flickered across rooftops, reflecting in fractured puddles. Kaelin stood in the back of a stripped-out freight hauler as it tore down a maintenance corridor beneath the city. His knuckles were white against the grip rail, heart pounding in rhythm with the rattling hull. They had one shot. "Convoy will hit the 3rd junction in less than 20 minutes, Kes shouted over the roar of the engine. She had a holomat balanced on one knee, a pair of signal jammers coiled at her feet. "How many guards?" Kaelin asked. "More than we can handle," Jesh answered from across the compartment. He wore his old enforcer gear but carried no badge. 2 hovers in front, 1 armored prisoner hauler, 1 drone escort above. Leora leaned over a crate, syncing the EMPs to a single detonation band. "We need to neutralize the drones first. Otherwise, they'll tear us to ribbons before we even breach the hauler." Kaelin's gaze drifted to the spike tucked safely in his coat, the second half of his mother's file, encoded with both proof of her innocence and something more. A final message. One she hadn't sent yet. One they needed the world to hear. He pressed his forehead to the cold metal wall. "Please be alive." High above the city, the convoy moved like a black snake beneath the neon flicker of rain-soaked skylanes. Inside the armored hauler, Neera sat chained, wrists raw, body bruised but unbroken. Her head rested against the reinforced wall as she watched raindrops trickle across the tiny slit of a window. She didn't pray. She didn't cry. She waited. "Now!" Leora shouted. Kes triggered the EMP. A pulse of blue light rolled across the underpath. The drone escort sparked, spun, and crashed like dying birds. Screams erupted from the guard hovers as engines sputtered. Metal shrieked. Jesh leapt from the hauler before it stopped moving. His shock staff lit the air with a hiss of electricity. He brought down 2 guards in one sweep. Kaelin followed, blaster in hand, ducking under fire as the convoy's rear door opened and more guards poured out. Kes jammed the sensors. Leora and Kaelin charged the hauler. He saw her, through the slit. Neera. She saw him, too. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She mouthed something, "Run." He didn't. He slammed the override chip into the lock. Sparks flew. The door creaked open, just enough. "Kaelin," she breathed. Then a shot rang out. Leora fell. The world spun. Kaelin dropped to his knees beside her, fingers already pressed to her side. Blood pulsed between them. "No, no, no, stay with me. Go, get her out." Leora rasped. "I'm not leaving you." She smiled weakly. "Then die together." "Idiot." Jesh fired overhead. "Move." Kaelin hoisted Leora onto his back and shouted at Kes. "Get her to the med station." Kes grabbed her, teeth gritted. "We'll meet at the fallback point. You go." Kaelin turned to Neera, still chained, blood on her lip. "They didn't break you. They broke the wrong woman." He used Jesha's override key to release the shackles. Nira collapsed forward into his arms. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "Let's go." The storm chased them. Sirens howled. More hovers screamed down from the towers. The fallback point was an old drainage hub in Sector 12, where resistance cells had once hidden during the Purge years. Kalen and Nira arrived just as Kes emerged from the tunnel with Leora on a stretcher. "She's stable," Kes said. "But fading." Nira dropped beside the girl and took her hand. "You held him together." "Thank you." Leora's eyes fluttered open. "You're real." Nira smiled. "Very." Leora passed out again. Kalen sat back, breathing hard. "This can't last," Jesh said. "They'll bring everything now. They'll lock the skies, close the gates, crush the protests. Unless," Nira said, pulling something from her pocket, "we give them the ending they didn't expect." It was her voice recorder. "My last message. The one I saved for this moment." Kalen looked at Leora, then at his mother. "Let's tell them." In the nest, hours later, the air smelled of ozone and burnt plastic. The transmitter was rigged for one final override. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Marin asked. Nira sat before the mic. Her face was lined, bruised, but shining. "If they come for me again, I won't survive it. But I'll die free." Kalen gripped her shoulder. "We'll protect you." She nodded. And she spoke. "To the people of Tellura, and to the stars beyond. My name is Nira Kes. You tried to erase me. But I am still here. And this time, I'm not speaking alone." She looked to Kalen. He stepped up beside her. "I am her son. I watched them lie. I watched them kill my friend. I watched them break my city. No more. We rise now. Together." The feed went out. And the city exploded. Not in violence. In purpose. Thousands marched. The military refused orders. Drones were grounded. The governor's tower lost power. The crowd reached its base. And inside, the council turned on itself. One by one, officials flipped. Arrests were made. A call for elections was broadcast. The system didn't shatter all at once. But the first crack had split deep. Leora awoke 3 days later to sunlight streaming through a cracked window. Kalen was there, his head resting on her arm. She touched his cheek. He stirred. Eyes met hers. "Hey," she whispered. He blinked, smiled. "We made it." She looked past him and saw Nira watching from the doorway. The older woman nodded. "You both did." The sun over Tellura rose with a hush, not a roar. For the first time in decades, the council square stood quiet, no barked orders, no drone surveillance, no guards at the gates. Just the wind. The sound of birds returning. And the city holding its breath. Kalen stepped onto the dais where the governor once stood, his shadow stretching over the flagstones. The same place where his mother had once been condemned in secret. Now it was public. Now it was theirs. "We're live across all channels," Leora said, adjusting the uplink drone behind him. She wore a white bandage under her collar, but she stood tall. "You ready?" she asked. Kalen looked at her, then at Nira in the front row, arms folded, eyes steady. Marin and Kes stood beside her. Behind them, thousands. Above, millions watching. He took the mic. "My name is Kalen Kes. You know who I am. But this isn't about me. It's about what we all refuse to stay silent for. What my mother taught me. What Leora bled for. What Tane died for." A silence fell, as weighty as thunder. "Today, we dismantle the last remnant of that corrupted rule. Today, we open the vault. He stepped back, and the screen behind him lit up with cascading data, stolen contracts, off-world bribes, suppression algorithms, black site footage. Everything Malrix had buried. The crowd didn't cheer. They watched. They remembered. And when the final name appeared, Malrix, status, detained, they exhaled together. A breath long denied. 3 weeks later, Tellura shimmered beneath new banners, deep violet and copper, colors chosen by a public vote. The new council stood on temporary platforms made from the debris of the old. Nira stood among them. She refused the title of head speaker. Instead, she chose the role of guardian liaison, responsible for listening, not leading. Kalen watched from the back as she addressed the crowd. We don't erase the past. We learn from it. We don't name martyrs. We honor voices. He felt Leora's hand slip into his. You think they're ready for this? She whispered. Does anyone ever feel ready for peace? She smiled, rested her head against his shoulder. Peace feels strange, she murmured. Strange is good. Later that night, on the rooftop of what used to be the nest, Kalen stood beside Leora watching stars glint through the mist. You know, she said, I thought this part would feel bigger. This is the biggest part, he said. Now we live. Now we heal. He reached into his pocket and pulled something small. A chip. Not a spike. Not encrypted data. A song. Kane recorded it before his last run, Kalen said. It's rough. He called it, A City Awake. He slotted it into the rooftop node. The music wasn't perfect. It skipped once. But it filled the sky with a rhythm that felt like hope. Below them, people danced. Not in celebration, but in remembrance. Slow, swaying movements, arms raised toward the stars. A way of saying, we're still here. Weeks passed. Elections came and went. A new coalition formed. The whisper lines were turned into community channels. The nest became a public archive. The resistance disbanded. Not because it failed. But because it won. Kalen took a job teaching civic code literacy to youth in Sector 9. He wore no badge. He had no titles. But sometimes, when he walked past a certain alley, he saw a flash of paint, eyes, wild and watching. And a name in neon. Nira speaks. She still did.